You're listening to I Have Some Notes, a podcast supported by listeners like you. To contribute, visit patreon.com/I Have Some Notes.
Hey, I've got a great idea for a thriller from M. Night Shyamalan.
I have some notes.
I didn't explain what the movie is. You have
I have some notes. Welcome, everyone, to I Have Some Notes, the movie podcast with cuts, keeps, punch-ups, and tweaks on mediocre movies. I'm Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver.
And today we are discussing Trap.
It's Valentine's Day. You guys
Yes,
ready to
baby.
fall in love with M. Night Shyamalan all over again?
Oh, baby, am I. He's got big, pretty eyes. He has very pretty eyes.
Oh, yeah.
We've dipped into the M. Night well a couple times on our podcast.
This is the third movie we've done, at least in my time here. We did Signs, we've done Old, and now this. And, you know, guys, I'm starting to think he's not listening to our advice.
I mean, in fairness, we're punching up movies that are already out. So,
I'm starting to think he doesn't listen at all.
Nope. This
can't
does
fix
feel
what's
like
already been put on print.
It does feel like Trap took the things that were wrong with Old and sort of magnified them 2 or 3 times. That's how I felt about it.
Oh, interesting. I would watch this 3 more times in a row before I watched Old again.
Oh, for sure. This one, like, for its flaws, and it is flawed. It's very watchable, and like I more or less had a good time through the whole thing. And part of it is like the strength of the cast, honestly. Like everybody's there for the show. Everybody's having a good time acting. Like this went down real easy in a way some other M. Night movies have not. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, even when it starts to fall off the rails, you're still like, well, it's just kind of disappointing. But
Josh Hartnett's very charming.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if I can let this faint praise stand any longer.
Yeah, you really didn't like this one here. But hang on, before we hear everyone's thoughts, we'll just make sure we're all up to speed. Of course, we're talking about Trap, released in August of 2024, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, written by M. Night Shyamalan. On Rotten Tomatoes, critics give it 57%, audiences gave it 65%. We call that the I Have Some Notes ratio. It stars Josh Hartnett as Cooper, Ariel Donahue as Riley, Salika Shyamalan as Lady Raven, and Allison Pill as Rachel.
Yeah, the Borg Queen herself returns to the film or the film world.
you know, it's actually nice always to see Allison Pill in a film. I've never seen her do a bad job in something. I've seen her in bad things, but I've never seen her be bad in things. It's nice to see Josh Hartnett again. Like, he's a good actor, and it's good to see him like working again, because he was just kind of like out of the spotlight for a while.
Yeah. Did you guys watch The Bear?
No.
He's in one episode of The Bear, and he plays a character's daughter's new stepdad, and he's in one scene, and the amount of like subtext and tension he brings as like the kind of big swinging dick new stepdad, like he's really good in like being really polite and friendly, and yet makes the focal character look 5 inches tall.
Love it.
I was looking through the Wikipedia for Trapped, and I did notice that it has a Canadian connection because it was filmed in Toronto and Hamilton, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
You always like this. I mean, I know that there's a lot of films that are filmed in Canada now, but I always appreciate it. It always gives me a little like, especially now, more concentrating on things being pro Canada.
Yeah, there's a lot of neat trivia with this. Like, just as soon as all those songs started going, I'm like, oh, there's definitely like an original soundtrack to this.
Yeah.
Like, these aren't just little bits they made up. I think there's definitely like a companion album. So,
yeah, I think you'd have to be, I don't know, pretty willfully ignorant not to see the reason that this movie was made, while you're watching it. Like, unless you don't know that, Salika is, or Lady Raven rather, is, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. But yeah, it's pretty clear what's going on here.
yeah, they have the same big, huge, pretty eyes.
Yep. That they do.
So Greg, what is your main grievance with this? Cause I think Scott and I were like, yeah, it's fine. Classic I Have Some Notes movie, watchable, full of holes, lots to work with here. We can fix it up. But you did not particularly have as much, grace for this movie.
Yeah,
Patience.
like it's kind of a lot like Old, where the acting in combination with the dialogue is so weird, and Trap to me kind of takes it to almost another level. And I don't know, maybe that's in part because some of the actors aren't very good. Like Salika seems like an extremely accomplished singer, and I think the soundtrack to the movie is largely fine, even if it does sound like a little derivative. But she's not without talent when it comes to singing, but when it comes to acting, maybe not so much. But I don't know, it feels to me like I know that M. Night Shyamalan has probably forgotten more about film than I know, but he's also forgotten a lot about film. There's so many just like really big rookie mistakes in this movie where things aren't set up to the point where it's just like, it's so obvious that these things weren't set up properly, that like, how does a man who has been making movies since the mid 90s at this level not understand that like you did not set that up? Like there are just like lines of dialogue that just sort of like, there's a moment where Josh Hartnett has locked his family up in the upstairs, and then the next moment they've escaped and they're running around on the lawn, and he just has this line where he just says, "Oh, I forgot about like this latch or something like that they open." I'm like, dude, like we don't know anything about your house. Like it's like it's so strange to like have these things just come up on a whim like that. It just really feels like a very horrible B movie, just in terms of the quality of the writing. And
I see what, yeah.
And I also think that the cinematic language is so weird to me. Some people on Letterboxd kind of described it as tongue in cheek, and I just think that's giving it way too much like credit. Like the way that Josh Hartnett and other actors are mugging for the camera, and the fact that the camera is sitting at like a shoulders up, like a head and shoulders shot, and they're talking directly into the camera. It just creates this strange, the combination of that and this like isolating the character like that and having them make these very strange, especially Josh Hartnett, has these kind of weird smiles and things like that. I get his character is supposed to be sort of like a bit of a psychopath, but it's still like, it still comes off like goofy rather than like, terrifying or anything like that. And like, it's weird to have like, when you do shot reverse shot, you usually don't have, characters facing directly into the camera like that.
Yeah,
it's
very right
off-putting.
along the 180 degree line. Like he's right on it.
Yeah. And I just don't, it doesn't feel like there's any intent behind that. It's just being done.
If you have, Scott, yeah.
Well, one of the notes that you posted in the little trivia section that we didn't fully go through was that Shyamalan pitched Trap as the Silence of the Lambs at a Taylor Swift concert. And I feel like the intention of the dead on shot reverse shot is him trying to pay homage to the Silence of the Lambs. Whether or not he succeeds, I feel like that's the intention behind it.
I had a different intention. So great. It's probably one of these two then. Because we learn pretty before the halfway point that Josh Hartnett is actually a bad person, but he is still our protagonist. It's the difference between a good guy and a protagonist. He's our point of view character. I think the camera is positioned very much either in his point of view or the point of view of someone looking directly at him to keep us feeling like we are riding along on his shoulder, seeing things from his perspective, to compensate from the fact that if the camera was detached in any way, we'd be much less empathetic and therefore rooting for a guy who is flat out monstrous.
Oh, and so you were rooting for him in this movie? Because I wanted him to get caught, but
you wanted him to get caught, but I rooting for him the way you root for the Wile E. Coyote. You don't want him to ever actually catch the Roadrunner. But you're he's our champion. He is our hero. He is who we are following, and we want to see his arc pay off satisfyingly.
He's the villain protagonist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and actually both of our comments tie in because a lot of the dead on shots in Silence of the Lamb are from Clarice's perspective. Mm-hmm. So it's very much a similar thing where it's trying to keep us in the perspective of one of the characters or focused in on one of the characters. So yeah, I think that's probably the intention there. Whether or not he succeeds is an entirely different question, but I think I understand the idea.
And I can understand what Greg is saying. It does feel a little weird. It doesn't feel like boring, safe, everyday movie choices, nor does it feel like something really stylistic and deliberate like a Wes Anderson situation. It's neither, shot for TV or shot like Wes Anderson. It's kind of split the difference in a way that's not comfy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe part of the intention was to make us feel a little uncomfortable because again, we're following a serial killer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know that I felt uncomfortable in the way that maybe M. Night Shyamalan intended, because I felt, I mostly wanted to jump out of my skin because the movie felt so awkward. I was cringing a lot.
Yeah. And I want to go back to that first point you made about the dialogue of not setting stuff up, and then expecting us to be oh, okay, sure. This might as well, this character, 4/5 of the way through the movie, let's meet a new character. But also, sets up things that never get paid off, like the tattoo never comes up again.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of setup with no payoff and a lot of payoff with no setup. Because the second and third acts of the movie are very disconnected from the first act, which is where the best part of the movie is. And just to take it right back to what I said before, his pitch being, this is the Silence of the Lambs at a Taylor Swift concert. A surprising amount of the movie doesn't take place at the Taylor Swift concert. Which might be me teasing what one of my change suggestions is.
I think it's everyone's change because when it moves to the second location, it's where most even
it starts to drop off.
Yeah, even if you're into it, you're like, wait, what? Oh, he's So the simple. It's not even the second location necessarily. It's the fact that we meet his wife and his son, and those characters are narratively redundant.
Kinda.
Because everything that matters about not having his secret come out, Riley can carry that.
Absolutely.
Riley the only person whose innocence needs to be protected is Riley's.
And at the same time, Riley could also have been the one who dropped the ticket.
Yep.
To leave to the FBI. The betrayal of his daughter would have been a much bigger blow to him than the betrayal of his wife.
Sure. That was the one thing Amanda and I were talking about of all the things that get set up and not explained or explained and not set up, at no point when it was like the FBI is like, yeah, we found a ticket stub at one of his safe houses, was I like, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would make that mistake. That's a bit of a plot. Like, the whole thing is nonsense. So I'm like, I totally buy, like, the thing that strains my credulity is not that he left a ticket at his safe house. It's that the FBI are raiding a Taylor Swift concert. It's that they don't have like there's so much stuff you have to suspend your disbelief for, which I'm fine to do, not complaining. But at no point did I question the fact that he left one too many breadcrumbs and now we're here. That was not a problem for me.
Do you want to hear the exact point that my brain came to a screeching halt in this movie and I was actually taken out of it? Was when in plain sight of a crowd surrounding a limousine, he changes clothes and gets out and nobody notices. That actually made me go, oh, he's magic. He's a wizard now. Like, because there's literally no way that I can think of that he could have done that. Like, I was completely taken out of the movie for like 5 minutes. I was hung up on that.
Well, we're pretty far down the trail of the details in this movie. So let's maybe take a break and catch everybody up on what we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Lady Raven.
Hurry, come on.
Wait. I gotta tie my shoe.
No dad jokes. This is serious. Come on.
I'm sorry. Lady Raven!
This is slap, Dad. Thank you. This is literally the best day of my life.
Cooper, Jamie, what's with all the police trucks outside? The cameras everywhere, Jamie. I'm not supposed to tell. Something happening? Don't rat me out. I won't.
You know the butcher? The freaking nut job that goes around just chopping people up? Well, the feds or whatever heard that he's gonna be here today, so they set up a trap for him. This whole concert, it's a trap. They're watching all the exits, they're checking everyone that leaves. There's no way to get out of here.
Cooper is a family man who just wants to take his daughter Riley to a Lady Raven concert. There's just one problem. He is a serial killer. Derivatively nicknamed The Butcher, Cooper is number 1 on the FBI's most wanted list, and when they find a receipt for Lady Raven in his abandoned lair, they set a trap. Once the concert begins and Cooper and Riley have taken their seats, agents and the police flood the arena. The only question is, how do you find a killer needle in a haystack of concert goers when you don't have a clue what he looks like? When you figure that out, let the FBI know, because their best guess is to just wander around. But even though the police have no reason to suspect him, outside of a tattoo he covers up and never comes up again, Cooper panics and makes a spectacle out of his daughter, getting her on stage to sing with Lady Raven. Backstage, he reveals everything to Raven, including a hostage he's trapped in a laundry room and can kill with the push of a cell phone button. He promises to murder this rando we've never seen before unless Raven smuggles Cooper and his daughter out of the arena in her limo. Lady Raven, now suddenly the main character, tries to get the upper hand by inviting herself over to Riley's home. Riley goes bananas as her musical hero enters her house and plays an entire song on her piano, available now on Apple Music and Spotify. Raven uses the distraction of her performance to steal Cooper's phone and hides in the bathroom where she live streams to her fans for help. Cooper locks his family upstairs, then breaks into the bathroom and drags Raven into his car. There, Raven, having met an FBI profiler once, pretends to be Cooper's mom. It's very weird and doesn't work at all. Raven is about to be kidnapped when Riley and her mom Rachel escape the prison of upstairs and force Cooper back into the house as the police arrive. Cooper escapes capture in increasingly unbelievable ways until he winds up back at home where Rachel, now suddenly the main character, reveals she suspected him all along. She planted the Lady Raven receipt for the FBI to find. Yup, the big twist is a Ticketmaster stub, and people say M. Night Shyamalan doesn't have it anymore.
By the way, that bit about her songs being available on Apple Music and Spotify. That's not really a bit. That's just that's just what's happening. Like
that's a fact. Yeah.
Like we mentioned earlier, it's the reason for the movie. I want to ask you a quick question before we dive right back into the details. Did the fact that this was very much like a kind of Nepo situation, did that pull you out of the movie a whole lot?
I kind of knew it going in, and I was expecting it to be honestly more jarring than it turned out to be. And I think part of the reason is because, as you already said, she's actually a pretty talented singer. So it wasn't like an egregious situation of someone undeserving getting an opportunity, because like she's a very believable pop star. She's got the vocal range. She's got the pipes. She can dance.
Yeah.
Like
the song sounded like classic pop songs.
Yeah. Like it was very believable to me that she was a big superstar.
Yeah. It is not the biggest transgression of this movie.
No.
Yeah. I actually felt more or less the same way. I think if the movie, if they used her in a more limited role rather than turning Raven into the default main character at one point, it might have been
Act 2 protagonist.
It might have been a much better turn for M. Night's daughter. I think the scene with her in the car, trying to like overmind Josh Hartnett. I think that was the part where it got a little too egregious, and it was just a little bit beyond her skill level as an actress at this point. That's not to say that she couldn't get there at some point, but that's where it kind of fell apart for me.
Oh, see, I don't know that scene where she tried, and we rip on it a bit in the trailer summary, but I like the scene where she tried to like, get under his skin with the thing the profiler told her and then have it not work. He's like, shut up. I know what you're trying to do. Cause the thing that was the most fun about this movie is watching Josh Hartnett's character Cooper try to be like, is what we were talking about in Dead Reckoning episode, be clever, find clever ways to stay ahead of the game, to keep his upper hand. And in that scene, one of the only cards Lady Raven has to play is to try that. And the fact that she has the guts to try it, even if it doesn't work, was kind of fun. And I think basically the whole movie should be people trying to out clever each other and not whatever the last
you're tiptoeing into my changes.
You're tiptoeing into my changes. I don't think this one's a real mystery. What's wrong with it?
No, there's I even said this after I watched the movie. Like, it's very watchable, but like I could immediately see three big changes that would have made the movie better. That would have made the movie really crispy.
Well, then what do we like about it? What were things that did work for us? Because I think when we get to the second half fixing it, we're also going to talk about the biggest problems kind of in hand.
I really like the chemistry between Josh Hartnett and Ariel Donahue as dad and daughter. I really bought that. I think Josh Hartnett played a really good, when he was turned on to dad mode, he played really good dad. I think he's pretty good in the movie. Like, again, Greg kind of brought up that maybe he was directed a little weird, and he was definitely making choices though, which I appreciated. You could see the switch being turned in his brain when he was like turning on his fake emotions and turning them off. I really liked watching Josh Hartnett in this movie. I think the cast is good.
Cast is good.
I quite like the premise. Sorry. If I was going to jump all over what you were going to say, Liam, I apologize.
I'll find a third thing.
I mean, like it is, I think it's a fun setting to have a thriller. We've done Sudden Death on this podcast way back. And I love that the idea of I think people who listen to this podcast know I love kind of like bottle movies where things are really stuck in a claustrophobic setting, and a concert like this where there's when you're in an arena, there's all sorts of interesting places to hide and go to, and lots of people to interact with, lots of dangers of getting caught, and I think there's a lot of fun stuff to play with. So I think it's a smart setting. It's a fun setting. I don't mind M. Night Shyamalan's pitch of Silence of the Lambs at a Taylor Swift concert. It's nowhere near disturbing or violent enough for something like that. If that's what he was going for, this is like almost like a G-rated thriller. There's almost nothing really going on.
It's very PG-rated.
Yeah.
But you know, a good taut thriller doesn't necessarily need to be bloody.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be implicit danger without someone actually getting like cut up. And I mean, he does like badly burn an innocent person and throw someone down the stairs at one point. So it's not like there's no body count here. Like it's interesting because an arena is simultaneously an easy place to hide and a hard place to hide. Like, how do you hide in a crowd? You're in the crowd, but you're also trying not to stand out. It's wonderful. And it's a shame that the movie doesn't spend the whole runtime in the arena, which I think it's safe to say all three of us want the whole movie to take place in the arena.
Oh yeah. There's no need for it to ever leave. I'll even give you her limousine. You can leave the arena and have the like whatever the final beat is. And this is mostly my fix. In the limousine is fine. Cause it's just an extension of the enclosed space of the arena. But the second the doors open to the limousine and the outside world, like the second as much as you, and I do want to say what I liked, but you didn't believe he changed his clothes in the front seat of the limousine. Once he got out of that, I'm like, well, then he's free. We're done. We're over. He's out in the world. Like he is no longer trapped. He was trapped in the limousine. He was trapped in an arena. Now he is not trapped. The movie is over. And then there's still 20 minutes left.
Well, I would argue, I would argue that the trap is at the arena and he gets out of the trap in Act 2.
Yeah.
So,
I also realize
he
does conflating. There's a second trip in a limousine. There's 2 trips in a limousine.
Yeah.
And in my perfect version of this movie, you cut out them ever going home, and silly as it is, having him do the costume change and crawl out of the limousine in the middle of the crowd, that can have happened between arena and that moment, right? Like if you cut out the house, they just drive the limousine into a crowd of Lady Raven fans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I liked about it, because this is just my fixes.
Yeah.
I touched on it earlier. It was the being clever. It was what's fun about spy movies. It's what's fun about those sort of farcical comedies, like very Arrested Development of like always trying to juggle a ruse. I love watching characters try to juggle ruses. It's so good. It's so fun. And not just the premise of like, oh, guy trapped in a concert, but the premise of like, it's almost the like sitcom trope of 2 dates.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's got to keep his daughter happy and having fun, and he's got to evade the FBI, and he's got to balance these 2 totally different situations. It works for the same reason as the sitcom trope of 2 dates, and I love it.
I think you're going to enjoy. I have 2 big possible fixes, and I think, Liam, you're going to enjoy both of them. So,
well, then, you know what, gang? Let's just get into it. Let's go to a break here. Here's some from some of our podcast friends, and then come on back, and we are going to fix Trap.
I'd like to get more reading done, and joining a book club seems like a good idea, but I don't know.
Why not?
Reading a whole book in a month, that's pretty daunting.
What if it was just a chapter, say a week?
That doesn't sound too bad. Still, getting together with a bunch of people, that's a whole evening.
Well, what if it was only half an hour, whenever you wanted to?
That would be great.
The Read Along, a mini book club for your ears.
Join my wife, Anita,
and my husband, Scott,
as we take you on a journey through a good book,
one chapter at a time. Available right now on your podcatcher of choice.
Welcome back to I Have Some Notes. Greg, Scott, let's fix Trap.
Let's do it. I think, obviously, keep it in the arena. That's the first
I think we all just agree. Okay, so easier said than done. Then if that's what we're going to start with, then I would like to just sort of establish some parameters of what does Keep It in the Arena look like, because I went back and looked before we record. They pull up to the driveway of Cooper's house where he meets the family at exactly 1 hour into this hour and 45-minute movie.
Yeah. So you need to essentially rewrite the second and third acts of the movie to keep it in the arena.
Yes. Or if you do what I had said in the first half of like them leaving the arena in Lady Raven's limousine, let's leave that as a final beat or near the end of the beat. We essentially, it's not even necessarily have to rewrite the second and third acts, but we have to fill 45 minutes. We have to put, stuff that happens there needs to be at the more 1 hour
business. Mark. There's more business in the arena, but I mean, the arena is a big place. As Greg pointed out, there's lots of other places they could have gone that Cooper could have like snuck into, that he could have been juggling Riley around in. Mm-hmm. Like there's stuff going on there.
Agree. I'm not saying it's not possible. I just wanted to give you to just be like, well, they should just stay in the arena. It's like, well, that's about half the movie. So we gotta fill a lot in.
Yeah. And then either the grand finale happens in the arena or happens as he almost escapes in the limousine. Mm-hmm. I have a big question because my big change is dependent on which direction in a fork in the road you want to go. Okay. And that is, do you want Cooper to be sympathetic and for the audience to be rooting for him? Or do you want to keep him a serial killer? Because the answer to that question dictates what my big change is.
Interesting.
I think I prefer him to be a serial killer, but I also would what I would like to do with him is to maintain that he is sympathetic to a certain extent right up until the last possible moment, and then rug pull that.
Yeah, well, and rug pull it one way or another. Because if that question predicates your fix, then I'll answer it. I'd like to see him stay a serial killer.
I think that's my preference. But
I think you can have both. You can have a guy who is you're sympathetic and you're rooting for him, and is a serial killer who deserves to get caught. Both things can be true.
They can. I'll quickly glaze over what the more sympathetic road was, which was don't make him a serial killer, make him a thief. He's a heist guy. He's basically Danny Ocean.
No.
And he's in a trap, but the joy then becomes trying to watch him use his heist skills on the fly to get out of what seems to be a perfect trap for him. But I agree with you. I think the overall fix would want to keep him being a serial killer. So in that case, he is not our only focal point character. You have him and the FBI profiler as our focal point characters, so that you're getting stuff from his perspective and stuff from her perspective, and it becomes a game of cat and also cat. Mm-hmm. She starts out the movie in Act 1 on the offensive because she's got him figured out. She doesn't know who he is, but she's in his head because she's so good at her job, just like she is in the actual movie. Mm-hmm. And he is on the back foot. He's stuck in this trap. He's realized that it's a trap. He realizes that they seem to be onto him, even though they have no idea who he is, even though he's been so careful. Then the tides turn when he gets his hands on the radio, because once he can start listening into them, he starts turning things around, because now he's not doing the things that she's anticipating, because he's listening in and he's changing his plans on the fly. Suddenly she's on the back foot and he goes on the offensive. So you see him start to put together the pieces that he needs to try to get out of this meticulous trap that he's stuck in. And then she starts to question herself, like, maybe I'm not in his head as much as I thought. Maybe some of the people around her are like, maybe you're not as good at your job as you think you are. Maybe you don't have him as figured out as you do, until they realize that a radio is missing. That's the beginning of Act 3, is they identify what he's been doing. He's been listening in. And now, not able to rely on the radios, she has to rely purely on her instinct and what she knows about him to play her final chess moves while he's playing his final chess moves. And so they're on even footing in the third act. And you see them kind of go head to head in that way. And you're rooting for her to catch him, but you are also kind of rooting for him not to have his relationship with his daughter spoiled, because that's the other tension.
Yeah.
That's the other tension. And then I think the big shocking betrayal, the big twist at the end is his daughter was suspicious and she's the one who tipped off the FBI.
I don't mind that. I think that's let's say that's option one. And I think
that's definitely my option too. I just want to say with that, I can fill in what I have a bunch of specific details, scenes to pad it out. So what do you think the option 2 is, Greg?
Okay. So it's sort of along those lines where, as Scott pointed out, we're containing this in within the arena. I actually think that for the most part, we jettison the profiler. Maybe it becomes more of like it could be some kind of FBI agent or whatever, but maybe not someone who's so directly in the serial killer's head. The trap itself is just that they've clogged up the arena with cops and he's not able to get out, and that they're essentially, it's a concert where it's mostly teen girls, and the people that stick out are the adult males because there aren't that many of them, and then they're using that against the serial killer because they're just the cops have flooded everywhere and they're just trying to check every male for like signs that they might be this guy. They have some intel that he might have like a tattoo somewhere or whatever that might be identifiable or whatever. And that can play into what they're checking for. That's the one thing that kind of bugged me about the movie is like, they got all these cops here, but what are they doing to actually find this guy? And that's never really approached when they set it up that like they're looking for something. So like, why don't they have checkpoints set up? And it's in an arena setting, pretty easy to do that because you have lots of like, it's normal for arenas to have like metal detectors and checkpoints and things like that. So like when Josh Hartnett cottons to the fact that like, oh, they're going to check everybody exiting and entering the arena, for something that they might easily identify me with. Now I'm stuck and I can't get out. And then, he's got to do his thing. But what I thought was the through line of most of the characters in this movie, or what could be the through line for most of these characters, is just the idea of obsession. Josh Hartnett has an obsession with murder, obviously, because he's a serial killer, but he also has this obsession with maintaining the relationship with his daughter. And his daughter has an obsession with the singer on stage, Lady Raven. And it would be even fun to sort of play that off a little bit where it's like sort of almost unhealthy, like almost like a fan gone too far kind of thing, like just teetering on the edge of that.
Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And I thought it would be really fun if we do want to actually involve Lady Raven in the whole plot, then have her be someone who is herself obsessed with serial killers. Maybe she's like, she's a singer and stuff like that, but she has interests in like, the murder podcast scene and all that kind of stuff. She fancies herself a little bit of a internet sleuth, so when she, initially she doesn't know why there's such a heavy police presence, but of course they kind of inform her that like, we're looking for someone. And then she kind of like her interest and obsession in that, she starts to like pick up the details of who it is they might be looking for. And it turns out, the serial killer is a serial killer that she's been kind of, interested in and investigating herself through her own like sleuthing. So at least that way you can kind of get her into it. And then that gets her involved in like, in between her sets, she's getting involved in this whole investigation trap situation, that maybe she, gets in over her head too much. Like she thinks she can capture this guy. And then when she does get close to him, she's very quickly in over her head. And like that way, her obsession leads to her downfall. And then maybe Josh Hartnett's obsession with trying to maintain his relationship with his daughter is his downfall. Or I was also thinking like the way that we can turn the audience straight against him is that in the end, he turns on his daughter, and that his relationship with the daughter was only his mask to like, he was just using his family as a mask so that he can continue going on murdering. So that's sort of where I landed with that. Now I know that doesn't have a lot of like fleshed out plot details, maybe a little less than what Scott does, but that, I was thinking of things on a much more thematic level, I guess.
Well, and even if you want to keep the obsession theme, you can stick that on my FBI profiler. She's obsessed with catching this guy. Like she's in his head. Like that takes a level of obsession too. So even if you don't want to hang that on Lady Raven necessarily and keep her a little more ancillary, you can have the FBI profiler.
I had a light bulb. So I love this, what do you call it? A triangle, but for four, like a square, but like
a square
a quadrant of goals and motivations between the daughter, the dad, the pop star, the FBI profiler. So Scott, I think you're right. At the very least, more from the profiler, if not to add a game of cat and mouse, catch me if you can, but just to pad out 45 minutes
or
dialogue for that character. Scott, Greg, you're also correct. Lady Raven can have a little bit more agency and a little bit more skin in the game if she has some investment in this case beyond just wanting to be helpful to the FBI. Yeah. And that pads out another chunk of our 45 minutes we're trying to fill in.
It's also true.
But I think the central tension of maintaining the relationship with the daughter and getting out scot-free, first of all, is plenty. I said it before, but I'll reiterate it. That trying to keep two dates happy, trying to keep two completely opposing goals in balance, there is enough material there to fill a ton of the movie. And I think at the end, because you guys keep saying that you're not rooting for Josh Hartnett or like he's a bad guy because he's a killer. And I think because he's so fun and likable, like we like him even though he's a killer. So at least for me, that was never a problem. But I think when push comes to shove, when whatever the last beat of the movie is, and it certainly doesn't happen in the movie as written, he should have, when everybody's chips are down, whatever that looks like for the past hour and 45 minutes, he has to decide between getting caught and breaking the illusion to his daughter. And the fact that like 20 minutes into the movie, she's like, Dad, you're acting weird. Is something wrong? 40 minutes or an hour and 10-ish into the movie, she knows he's a serial killer. That relationship is shattered and done. That relationship is like the only valuable thing, and it should be maintained right up until the end. So the fact that like they get locked in the bedroom at an hour 10, I was like, well, then it's fucking done. Riley doesn't love him anymore. I don't give a shit what happens to him. I don't care if he gets away. I don't care if he lives. I don't care if Lady Raven lives. I don't care if the FBI.
You need to maintain that tension right up until the final moment.
Right up until the end. And he has to choose between keeping that like illusion up of not just like, does she not know I'm a serial killer, but she had a magical evening, and getting caught. And I think I would like to see him make the choice to be like, she's going to go get driven home by Lady Raven, and I'm going home with the police. I fucked up. My life is over, but at least my daughter had this magical evening that I didn't traumatize her. It would be my favorite ending, but I would even be okay if he, in the end, finally, like at the 0 hour, she's like, Dad, you were you're the guy they were looking for? Aw. And then he goes off to think, I don't want that one, but that would be okay too. But I think either way, that tension has to stay right up until the end.
Yeah. I think I don't think he needs to have a redeeming arc. I think that in the end, either he needs to lose everything. He's a serial killer. He's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And so I think in the final moment, he either needs to be betrayed by Riley, or he needs to make the wrong choice and choose his freedom over maintaining his family.
I want to go back to the betrayal thing. I think I disagree. I think there's a way where at the end of the movie, Riley had a wonderful night at the Lady Raven concert with her dad, and she's going to wake up tomorrow and find out he's going to jail, but she's going to bed having the best day of her life, and that's what's important. But also the thing about her betraying him, I agree, but it shouldn't be the same way that his wife betrays him.
I actually kind of agree with you there. I just kind of threw it in there if you wanted like the easy out, but yeah.
I have a pitch for how Riley betrays her dad, and it was based off what Greg said about obsession. There's we're never leaving the arena, so there's lots of time for different characters to be in different spaces with each other. And at some point, Riley is left alone with Lady Raven. Perhaps even at a point when the cat and mouse of the FBI profiler and Cooper are at their highest. Riley and Lady Raven are sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for their respective authority figures to come back. And Riley is so obsessed. She's so trusting of Lady Raven that she spills a bunch of details that she thinks are innocuous. Like, oh, my dad has a tattoo that looks kind of like that. And then Lady Raven goes, oh shit. And has to she becomes the catalyst for getting him caught.
That ties into Greg's thing. If she's aware of the butcher and she's aware of the butcher
because she listens to podcasts, and Riley is willing to tell her everything because she loves her.
I like that.
The same way the merch guy. It was literally the same thing that the merch guy does for Cooper, Riley does for
Lady Raven.
I
like that. I really like that. Yeah. I think that's perfect, and it ties everything up real nicely with Greg's idea of everybody having their own little obsession and it all kind of coming to a head.
Well, then I'm going to keep hitting you with some more specific plot details, because that's what I had. I was just everyone's going to have their, big picture of what does the arc look like? And I'm like, I don't really care. I just think it all needs to stay in the goddamn arena. So it's what are they doing in the arena? And so my first pitch is there needs to be a scene where the other mom and the kids who are bullying Riley are used, because they come up and they never really come up again, like the tattoo. So there is a point where he's getting pursued by, he's heard on the radio, jig is up in some way, and he's got to move, and he's got to ditch Riley. And so he uses a charm offensive to convince the mom and the other girls to hang out with Riley for 20 minutes while I go do something. And Riley, is part of her magical evening, is she rekindles her friendship with her friends and this other mom. And it's all very grand kids movie, very, Seeing Red, or what was the Pixar Red Panda movie?
Turning Red.
It's just this, from Riley's perspective, it's just a magical night at a concert, all the way through. And setting up, that's honestly why I thought they were set up, the other mom and the kids, it was another place he'd be able to
ditch Riley for a little bit,
ditch Riley to go do crime stuff and then come back. And now he's a good dad because he's actually got he comes back with good dad points. He's killed someone and he's come back with good dad points.
And instead it goes nowhere.
Yeah. I love the way he plays the merch guy, and I love the thing about the explosion. And I think you could get basically rule of three in comedy, three little clever plays, kind of I guess he kind of steals the radio, but I wanted one more thing like the exploding grease, where he does something absolutely sinister, or then shoving the lady down the stairs. I wanted a couple more of those. That was the most fun. Or where he's being really charming, nat 20 on his persuasion checks, getting people to volunteer information. And I think there was a wasted opportunity with how much information the merch guy gives him on two separate occasions. He just verbally dumps exposition on him twice. And if we're trying to pad out the missing 45 minutes, you just spread out some, literally make those details that he tells them bullet points and assign each one of them either a charisma check or a distraction play. And that's another way you pad out another 15 minutes of the movie.
I think if you really want to make Cooper seem more dangerous and seem more sinister going into the third act, I think, especially because we've gotten to know the merch guy, we've started to like the merch guy, he needs to do something terrible to the merch guy going into the third act. I think one of the set pieces is after we've built up a little rapport with this guy, Cooper kills him or grievously injures him as a ploy.
And if he's hurt the fry cook, he's hurt the merch guy, he's hurt the lady he shoved down the stairs, he's hurt the guy on the phone, he's hurt a fifth person in a fun, entertaining, looks good in the trailer kind of way. When he's finally in the room with Lady Raven, we fear for her.
Yeah.
Because we like her because we've also spent a bit more time with her.
Yeah. I like that. And especially if the merch guy, because he's also into serial killers and he's also aware of the butcher, if he starts to cotton onto something, and that's maybe one of the reasons why Cooper needs to silence him. So we've also established that he's willing to kill to protect his identity. And if Lady Raven then is also cottoned onto him, then we're really afeared for her, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also think that like the merch guy should not know what's going on. You know, I don't think any like staff in the arena should be in on it.
Certainly not all the details. They should be in on the fact that the FBI are conducting an exercise. And that people will be questioned, and the staff are just to, continue operating as normal, but not get in the police's way and report anything suspicious.
Yeah, I think his curiosity should lead to him learning more about the operation than most people do, and then that's what tips him off to like maybe Josh Hartnett is the one that they're looking for, and then then that can lead to his death.
Or at the very least, like what I was saying, if you spread out his details, there's just now more opportunities for him to like ask those leading questions and like be really smiley. And it's just fun to watch. Like watching him get that information out of the guy was fun. And then the guy gives him more information than was equal to the fun we had watching him get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
or even
you can ration those exposition bits out a bit more. Like any good mystery.
And not even necessarily to the same character too. You could have him like plying some of the police.
That's what I mean really when I say spread him out,
yeah.
like spread him out across different characters.
Yeah.
I never really got the sense that like Josh Hartnett's character was particularly clever throughout the entire movie. He just like when he pushes that woman down the stairs, it's like right in the open, and like it doesn't really feel like it was all that surreptitious. I would love to have seen a lot more heady stuff coming out of that character. Yeah. To make it feel more like he really is that hard to catch, and he does think really well on his feet.
And that's one of the reasons why I want the FBI profiler to be a perspective character, because then we get to see her make moves, him make counter moves, him go on the offensive and put her on the back foot, them playing against one another in the final act and making their final moves in the chess game, right? Like it gives him more opportunity to seem smart than he's given in the existing movie when she's just kind of in the periphery.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing is played very, very poorly. The FBI profiler character is she's
not a character.
Yeah, she's not, and she almost feels like a voiceover.
Kind of, yeah.
She's floating around so much.
Again, one of the reasons I want her to be more of a focus character.
And I wonder, okay, I don't even know if this is a good or bad thing if she's more of a focus character. She wasn't in it quite enough for me to really think this is what was going to happen, but maybe if she had more dialogue, more screen time, I would have. I thought it was a very specific choice to have an elderly white woman be the FBI profiler for a guy who's hung up on mommy issues. I'm like, is the profiler going to be his mom? And it turns out no.
We did
and I
think that at one point
for the best, but like M. Night could have even teased that a little and then been like, no, she knows, like almost like a reverse twist. Like he sets up what you think is going to be an M. Night twist and then pulls back on it.
Right. Yeah.
But instead she's just nothing. She's just voiceover.
Yeah.
To the point where even it was so you're talking about cringiness at the end. I think it's like the literal last bit of dialogue. She is a literal voiceover over pictures of like his family, her being like, it's always the ones you never expect. Could be that quiet guy down the street, your friend from church. I'm the profiler, and this dialogue is meant to be said
and I'm
to another person who's listening, but it's delivered like exposition voiceover. like the old lady in Paranormal Activity. I remember complaining about that. Or not. What was the horror one we watched?
Insidious?
Insidious, yeah, like the way the lady describes all the exposition in Insidious for the trailer,
right,
not for the purposes of the character.
Right, yeah. I mean, this movie's absolutely chock full of bad laughs for me. Like, that's, like, I would say, probably, at least 10 to 20% of it, like, Aaron and I were just laughing at just the gall to have put together a scene in the way that they had, or use or write dialogue in the way that they had,
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we call that a fix. We keep it in the arena. We get more out of the FBI profiler so that there is some back and forth, catch me if you can style battle of wits. We play up the relationship, the not necessarily the relationship of Cooper and his daughter, but the balancing act he has to play between escaping and maintaining her innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maintain that all the way to the end with a little more agency for Lady Raven. She can care a little more about this case as well. Is that a good summation?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Dig it.
Cool.
I think we've tightened the screws.
Mm-hmm. I have a bonus note. If the script has to stay as written, it's full of cringy moments, but there was one that just seemed obvious where I'm like, it would have been way easier than doing any of this. So that very last scene, assume everything stays the same as written. Mm-hmm. That very last scene, they're taking him from his house into the cop car and they let him stop to pick up a bicycle. And he uses that opportunity to steal the spoke to get away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous. Especially not only ridiculous for all the reasons it's obviously ridiculous, but it's also ridiculous because at one point Riley runs up and hugs him. And I'm like, when she runs up and hugs him, that's his opportunity to steal her beret, to steal her hair clip. Like, why do you need to have like 40 cops get the FBI most wanted list, let him pick up a bicycle for no reason? Like that, when you already have a perfectly good opportunity for him to get a little piece of metal to break his cuffs out.
Yeah. Or have her give him something.
Yeah.
Also,
Get him in.
what does he expect he's going to be able to do, even with his hands free and his feet free? Because as soon as they open up that door, he's going to kill the first guy there, and then everybody's going to shoot him full of bullets. Because they've already established they're willing to shoot him dead because they attempted to do it in the limo.
I mean, they've already established that his ability to disguise himself is unparalleled. So I assume
he's like Hitman from the Hitman game.
Yeah, that's right. He'll just blend himself into the walls, and they'll be like, "This truck's empty."
I mean, yeah, I always try to be careful on this show to not like nitpick, horror movie logic like that. But it seemed like such a redundancy, I guess, to be like, why is he picking up a bike when he already has a chance to hug Riley? If you need to put something in his hands, that moment already exists in the script. What are you doing?
Yeah. It's also like another example of like the things that they don't bother like setting up before, like that bike never appears.
Yeah.
And like, there's no reason for him. Like, it looks like he's picking it up because it's so important to him. But like, we've never seen that bike before. We don't know what it has, what its importance is to us. Like you want us to think it's important to him. It's a trick, so that we're fooled by us thinking like, there is a part of him that cares about his family. Oh no, he was just like, stealing this because that's who he is. He's a psychopath, Yeah.
Speaking of psychopaths, our listeners had some fantastic comments. Thank you to everyone who contributed. You can find us on Blue Sky. You can find us on Facebook for now. Or the best place to share your thoughts, get your notes into the episode is to join us on our Discord server, which you can find at ihavesomenotes.com. The link to that. It's always a great time. It's not even, you don't have to pay or anything. You can just come join us.
Yeah.
New people joining every day. Conversation always gets better. Conversations like this. Robin Taylor says, okay, let's talk about Trap. The first act is great. Establishes characters and stakes, including extra chatty merch guy because Josh H is so charming and beautiful. Second act shows how smart our guy is as the net tightens. And the third act shits the bed. The last scene is literally a Hitchcock riff where the bad guy explains everything, but it's so silly. How do we fix this? Tighten the noose more. Give the daughter agency. Make her start working against the father when she realizes or is forced to realize who her dad is. Fuck the nepo-baby pop star. The pop star is set dressing. The parent-child stake is the real drama, especially when dad is a full-on sociopath.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we largely agree with pretty much all of that. Yeah.
I think there's room for Lady Raven to play a role in the movie in the net tightening.
Yeah.
Because it's something he can't account for. He can get one over on the FBI all day long, but he can't factor in his daughter talking to a pop star or what the pop star is going to do.
And to take it right back to our fixes for a second, throughout, even using my suggestion of the FBI profiler being one of the protagonist characters, being a focal point, she doesn't know who he is. She's working against him, but she doesn't know the person she's playing against right up until like the end of the movie in this case. And I think it's because, like you said, Riley spills everything to Lady Raven, and that gives Lady Raven the opportunity to get that information to the FBI somehow. So that in the final set piece, the FBI does now know who this guy is. Like they've identified him. The jig is up at that point for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that gives her agency, that gives her a purpose in the movie, that gives Riley more agency and purpose in the movie. I like it. It all ties up nicely. Bogoload says, I feel like Trap and an awful lot of Shyamalan's movies starts really strongly, and then there's a point around that 2/3 mark where all the narrative propulsion and tension just stops working once someone has their little speech. Yeah, we can all see the flaw in this movie. It does not stick the landing. It makes the mistake of leaving the arena. Like his literal pitch for the movie was Silence of the Lambs at a Taylor Swift concert. And then halfway through, he leaves the Taylor Swift concert and the best part of the movie is done.
Yeah,
like as soon as he's out of the trap, the movie Trap is over.
Yeah. I don't think I'm repeating myself too much from what we've said, but like the thing that's interesting is him not getting caught and maintaining the illusion with Riley, and they drop the illusion with Riley in this movie so early, and it's like, no, that's actually even more interesting than him will or will he not get caught.
Yeah.
Can he, like the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking, do you remember the Animaniacs cartoon? There's all those like side cartoons, and there was one where it was a dog and a little baby girl, and the little baby girl would go wandering off, and it was up to the dog to like keep her safe while also like constantly getting shit on for being bad and causing problems. And he's always eating shit so that this little girl can just blissfully waddle away. That's what this movie reminded me of.
Buttons and Mindy, for the record.
Buttons and Mindy. Thank you.
Yeah. I did not look that up on Google, by the way. That was right off the dome.
Off the dome.
Erin, wife of the show, says, I hate how Shyamalan does dialogue. I'm sorry. It feels like he's trying to do a Lynch kind of thing, but basically everything he's made since The Happening is like watching people have conversations when you have a concussion. Yeah, I said this on our Discord, and I'll repeat it here for the people who are not on our Discord, who should be. I feel like M. Night Shyamalan is actually a very competent director overall, but he's not a very good writer. And I think many of his movies have made that very apparent. He maybe is a good idea guy, but I think he needs someone to come along and maybe I'm ringing our own bell here, punch up his scripts for him, punch up his ideas for him, and then hand it back and let him direct it. I think that's what he needs to start collaborating with someone. He needs to find someone to collaborate with.
I feel like I said this on the old episode, but this is a very George Lucas situation, right? Where it's just like he's lost the ability to have people around him tell him no. And, he's, he's just, devoid of, either he's surrounded himself by yes people or just like not enough people who are going to stand up to, poor decisions. And yeah, you end up with the situation like this where, halfway through the movie, Aaron and I were looking at each other. It's like, does M. Night Shyamalan know how humans interact? Because it just really doesn't feel like it.
It kind of works for Josh Hartnett's character in this movie because he should feel weird and kind of stilted and a little off kilter. Like
he's saying lines.
Yeah, like there's something uncanny about him that like rubs you the wrong way. But when all of the characters are doing it, yeah, it's not great.
Can I give you an example of my favorite awkward dialogue?
Yes,
When there's that riser that comes up, there's like a special guest singer, and the bottom of the arena kind of opens up a little bit, and there's this guy that comes out of a stairwell underneath the arena. And he wants to get away, and he turns to his daughter and he's like, "What do you think is down there? That looks really interesting. We should go down there." And she's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
In fairness, she reacted in a very realistic way.
Yeah.
And that's one of those ones where I'm like, oh, he like, yeah, she starts seeing the cracks in the illusion way too soon in a way that pulled me right out of it too. Cause I'm like, dude, you're playing you're so clever, but you're playing your hand like a bad lie. Whereas like what I was hoping would happen, what my notes brain would happen is he like makes a note of where the hatch is for later, or he like puts his like, drink cup in the thing, so there's a little bit of a crack that he'll be able to lift up later. Like Chekhov's secret door. Like I thought they were setting up an option for later.
This movie hates setups.
Andrew Craig says, I thought it was Shyamalan's best effort in a while. The premise is solid, and the duality of being a killer and a father is used really well. I'm not sure I feel like it stuck the landing in the end, although it was really cool to see Haley Mills again after all those years.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is this movie is a solid premise that does not stick the landing.
Yeah.
It just needed some punch up. It just needed some people to go through and tighten the screws and do like one or two more drafts. Could have had a great movie as opposed to just a watchable movie.
All right. Well, that's been IO's Notes. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah. If you'd like to take part in the conversation even beyond every episode, as mentioned, we're still on Facebook / I Have Some Notes. We're on Blue Sky at I Have Some Notes over there. And of course, the best place to get in touch with us, as always, is our Discord server. There's always some great conversation happening over there on this, upcoming movies, television. We're just a whole pop culture smorgasbord over there. You can get in on it right now for free. You can also give us a little rating and review on your podcatcher of choice, because that, of course, helps us out with the old algorithms.
And, of course, you can support us financially. Patreon.com / I Have Some Notes. We have some bonus content over there that you'll get access to. We are dropping things on there periodically. With any sort of schedule? No. With some regularity? Yes. Would you like to see those things? Patreon.com / I Have Some Notes.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks. Hey, you guys, I hear that new Captain America movie's pretty good. I think we should do that. What do you think?
I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not think we'll regret this at all.
Nope. We're going to it's going to be like Interstellar all over again. We're going to sit down and just give glowing praise to a perfect film for a full hour.
Can't wait. So we'll see you for that in 2 weeks.
Till then, I'm Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver. Keep watching the skies, you guys, and Nazi punks, fuck off.